Okay, hi everyone and welcome. My name is Shannon Sims, an integrative wellness coach and mind body specialist with Aila Health. Today I am here with Stacy Jagger. She is a licensed marriage and family therapist and registered play therapist supervisor and founder of Music City Family Therapy, where she specializes in integrating play and expressive art therapies for women, children, and families. Stacy's also published a book, 30-Day Blackout, How to Help Your Kids Turn Off the Screen and Turn to Their Family. So today we're going to be chatting with Stacy, and our conversation will really focus around the work that she's doing and really the impact of our screens and devices on our health and on our family, and maybe even how taking a digital detox can help boost our wellness. So welcome, Stacy. Really wonderful to have you here. And I'll just kind of turn it over to you if you'd like to introduce yourself a little bit further.
Sure. So I was born and raised here in Nashville, Tennessee. And after having worked in the community mental health profession as a case manager, went directly into private practice and started working with children and families and really the whole family, and really was looking for a way to help the whole family to get healthier, to become more connected, to resolve conflict in really the most efficient way that I could come up with, which in my mind, I felt like about a 3 to 6 month period of time was reasonable as far as parents being concerned about their families, their children. And I just had a wild idea based on an experience that I had in my early 20s, where I lived in a non-electric cabin for 18 months with my husband. And had a really profound experience of mindfulness, of learning how to really be present with myself and to not be in front of screens, to not be in front of a lot of just humming electronics at all, really. And in working with families, I really saw that the underlying common theme was that most of the families that were coming to see me were on, the children and families were on screens about 7 to 8 hours a day. And that was not including, their school time or anything else. And so I just, about 9 years ago, started inspiring families to consider turning off all of their screens for 30 days. And I can explain to you how it works. You're not actually going completely Amish, if you will, but except for what absolutely has to be used for work and school, you're really naming a 30-day period of time where you just choose to detox from all of the screen time that we are on in order to connect better to yourself, to nature, and to the people that you love. And over that 9-year period of time, I just started gathering lots of information. And quite honestly, I got a little tired of constantly repeating myself of how the 30-day blackout worked. And so I ended up writing a book called 30-Day Blackout that was very graciously endorsed by Dr. William Sears, who co-wrote the baby book years ago, and he's just a brilliant pediatrician that's world renowned, and has been very just supportive of my work and working with families around digital detoxing, screen time related issues, nervous system dysregulation, and so it's a big part of how I practice in regards to a proprietary clinical process that I've created called the Mountain Method, which is in essence a very clear phase-based process where I walk a family through climbing a mountain, where they are at the bottom of the mountain, what they want at the top, and I simply climb the mountain with them until their goals are reached, and then we graduate. So it's a goal oriented treatment process with a very clear beginning, middle, and end. And many times the beginning of that treatment process starts with a digital detox that I call the 30-day blackout.
I love that so much. And something that's striking me and listening to you speak to really the methods behind this 30-day digital detox is bringing some real intentionality behind, how we're using our screens, and really being mindful of what screens we're using, how often, and then really allowing ourselves to put some boundaries around that and to challenge ourselves, and in many different ways for how we can, put that aside and allow us to focus on other areas in our life. So maybe you can tell us just a little bit more about that 30-day detox program.
Yeah, happy to. So the way that it works is I sit down with the parents typically in my practice and explain to them that the 30-day blackout, the way that it works is you're going to go home and explain to your family that we're really not connecting the way that we are supposed to, the way we want to, the way that we're designed to. And for that reason, we are going to be turning off all of the screens for 30 days, except for what absolutely has to be used for school and work. That is typically when children absolutely lose their minds and have major meltdowns and just cannot even believe what they're hearing. What I typically tell the parents is, if you would like to, it would be helpful to you, just blame the whole entire thing on me. I could totally handle it. There's nothing like a common enemy to bring a family together. So, and what's so funny is I will many times have siblings come into my office and try to kind of negotiate with me of why this is a really bad idea. But anyways, so the way that it works is the first 5 days are complete and total hell, usually. I'm sometimes surprised that some children just get it from the very beginning, but most often kiddos are very, very upset about what's happening. So the first 5 days are total hell. Day 6 and 7, I call the door of boredom or the pit of despair. And that is when children, and quite honestly, parents, think that boredom just might kill them, but it never has. In the history of my practice, boredom has never killed any child or parent. After that door of boredom, for the next 3 weeks, I coach and inspire families and parents to come up with connection-based activities for what used to be entertainment. And so lots of hiking, walking, camping, putting puzzles together, board games. Children become willing to do things they really were not willing to do before, like, chop vegetables with mom in the kitchen, go for simple family walks, have more connecting conversations in order to resolve conflict in the home. And then during that 3-week period of time, what I find in my clinical practice is that whatever is really going on with the child, it will just simply bubble to the surface, and I'm able to access what's really going on with that child client in a very efficient, easy way, because there's really nothing that is impeding them from dealing and feeling what's happening inside of them. And so most families do the blackout once. There are many families that see so much progress with their family and even their marriages with the first initial 30 days that they will many times initiate a second blackout on their own without me even saying anything about it. So I will say probably around 40 to 50% of my clientele, they will do the blackout twice. During that blackout time, my husband, who is a holistic health practitioner and a tech health coach, will assess their screens in their home of how many screens do you have? Do you have parental controls on your children's, all the things that they have? There are some families that have 30 to 40 screens in their homes. So it's a lot to kind of assess and work through. And then my husband, he recommends what's called the Griffin router that will filter out any, pornography, violence, things that young children especially shouldn't be looking at. And he will either consult with that client over the phone to help them to do it themselves, or he will many times just simply serve that family by showing up to their house and doing it for them. And so what happens during the blackout is that there's a connection experience. The nervous system in all of the family members starts to regulate. So without getting overly scientific, in our autonomic nervous system, we have our sympathetic and our parasympathetic branch. In our sympathetic is when we feel revved up, and our parasympathetic is kind of when we feel slowed down. Many of my clients, especially the child clients I work with, are either in a constant rev up and then they kind of fall asleep and they're going back and forth to a sympathetic activation to a dorsal parasympathetic collapse response in their nervous system. And in essence, what I'm trying to do is help the child and the family's nervous system to regulate so that that ventral branch of the parasympathetic becomes activated and they feel a sense of poise, groundedness, a sense of connection with themselves, with nature, and with the people that they love in their families. And what's so interesting is that during this blackout period, just to kind of, circle back around to what you're doing, Shannon, is many families start to realize that their children are overeating with sugar, that they are not really paying very good attention to their health. And just by turning off the screens and getting outside with, good time in sunshine, more exercise, drinking pure water, they many times become willing to make replacements for what used to be white sugar and high fructose corn syrup to something that is a little more palatable to their system. And so there's this nervous system regulation experience that many times will happen, and then they become willing to have a little bit more of a holistic view of how they want to take care of themselves and their families a little better. And in that process of climbing a mountain with them, it might be that the child presents with anxiety or depression, or maybe the mom that I'm working with is struggling with some sort of diagnosis of some sort in the mental health realm. And what I have found over and over again is that when the nervous system has an opportunity to regulate through some sort of digital detox, that there is more of a margin to find time to do things that really families didn't think they had any time to do. And then post blackout, what I typically recommend with young children is the screen time marble system. And that is simply where you give each child 7 marbles in a jar. Each marble equals 30 minutes to an hour a day of screen time, and they get to spend their screen time as they want to. So maybe they want to spend a little bit each day, or they want to, cash them all in at once and have a big, maybe night or whatever. And then the parents will have their own little stash of marbles. If the children are being obedient and they're, cleaning their rooms and they're having a great day, maybe they add an extra marble to their jar as a token for good, good behavior. Or if you have a child that is being disrespectful and is being disobedient, you have the luxury of taking a screen time marble out of that jar. So that's typically a strategy for children 10 and under. 10 and up, I recommend a phone that I'm so grateful for my own family, and that is the Gab wireless phone, which is an internet-free phone for kids. And from the ages of 8 to about 14, I really highly recommend that parents recommend this Gab wireless phone to their children. It looks exactly like a smartphone, but I call it a smarter phone for kids, because just by having this phone instead of a smartphone, you're going to organically reduce several hours of unnecessary video game use, social media, all the things that just really aren't helpful during that developmental part of their lives. So I typically recommend waiting until at least 8th grade for a child to have any sort of smartphone, preferably high school. And then, so this is really kind of a systemic approach, holistic systemic approach to inspiring families to rethink their screen time use. And post blackout, they get to really decide how can we use screens in a way that's serving us rather than we're serving the screen. And it becomes a way to really think it through, where you have a balance in your life around how much time you want to be in front of a screen and your children and your family, and how much really isn't necessary, and finding other things to do, like, be healthy and get outside and go swimming and walking and biking and all the things. I'm really amazed at how playgrounds are empty. I'm being a little dramatic, but a lot of children are inside, not looking at the light of day, because they would rather be plugged in a screen rather than, and you only get 12 years to be a child, and then it's over. You're developing into an adult. So I'm really passionate about just putting this in its proper perspective. And there's like a domino effect of health choices that become more just good self-care options that families will many times kind of wrap their heads around. And most kids hate me in the beginning of implementing this intervention, but by the time it's over, they really start to understand, they thank me and they write me thank you letters, and they really got their lives back, and they didn't realize that they were wasting that much time with video games and social media and all the stuff. So that was a lot of words.
I appreciate this, and I just am so enjoying hearing you speak to this, this program and this structure that you're so passionate about, and helping families and children, and really identifying, really taking this in bite-sized pieces, I think is probably just one of the biggest things here. It can feel so overwhelming. How do we even start making some of this change? And then, experiencing this domino effect of, feeling like, okay, I can make this small change in one area of my life, and feeling motivated and excited to look at other areas in life where you can also make some small change that ends up becoming, so big. I love this, this climbing the mountain, metaphor that you have here. And it sounds like there's quite a bit of structure, baked into that, because I imagine that is so necessary for these families as they're tackling, okay, first of all, we're going to, take on this really big, if not impossible idea of minimizing screen time, turning off the screens. If you want to talk about the nervous system, if you even just think about what that would be like to turn off your screens, is that maybe raising the sympathetic nervous system a little bit, feeling a bit anxiety around how do you do that? But it sounds like, walking these families through that process and seeing them come out on the other side.
I have found that many families just do feel like without somebody guiding them through this, that they just can't pull it off. Which is why I have launched a coaching program where I can walk a family through the process without them having to be in a clinical setting. And that if you'll go to 30dayblackout.com, there's all the information about how to get the 30-day blackout book. And then you can actually sign up for a way for me to walk your family through the 30-day blackout process. And it really is individualized based on your family and what you can pull off. Especially with divorced homes, sometimes there's one family, the one side of the family that is willing to do a blackout and the other one just isn't on board. So there's some flexibility, in all of it, and naming this is what we want our blackout to look like. But I do see that lots of families are like, if you had not guided us through this, there's no way we would have done it. And so that's an option for folks if they really want to try something like this and they just feel like, there's just no way we can do this without someone guiding us through it. I'm happy to be helpful in that way.
Do you have any suggestions or maybe some practical tips for people who are, maybe not quite sure they want to commit to a 30-day blackout challenge, but want to start making a small change?
Small, incremental changes, yes. So, in just reducing screen time with folks, if you will do these two things, number one, take the screens out of your bedrooms. And number two, leave your phone in the car at night. And just by those two things, you will reduce your screen time dramatically. And I tell families this all the time. Bedrooms are for sleeping, and if you're parents, for sex. It's not for anything else. And it's really a part of the American Medical Association's guidelines for screen times. Screens were never designed to be in a bedroom. And call me crazy, but just take them out of the bedrooms. And number two, if you will leave your phone in your car from 6:30 at night until 6:30 in the morning, it will reduce, probably for most adults, about an hour or two per day of screen time just by that one thing. Just get yourself an old-fashioned alarm clock, and don't have your screen right by, your phone right by your face while you're sleeping at night. And I mean, quite honestly, this is kind of like going gluten-free or getting the sugar out of your diet. It is a lifestyle change that you on some level have to you're kind of over it. Like, we've been doing this long enough and this isn't working. Our children have behavioral problems. We're not connecting well. Everybody's, eating candy in front of the TV or whatever they're doing. And you've just realized, like, this isn't working anymore. And then, so
do you find
it's time.
Do you find that people are sometimes or often surprised when they get to the end of the 30 days with all the sorts of health, things that have come out of it, more than what they might have thought initially going into it?
The main things that I hear from my clients are, just by reducing screen time dramatically, their children are no longer fighting like they used to. Like, sibling rivalry reduces dramatically. Behavioral problems start to diminish because the research shows that a child's perception of connection in their formative years is directly related to their behavior. And so if you take the screens away and start connecting well with lots of good eye contact with your child, just that perception of connection will many times reduce their behavioral problems, because many behavioral problems, quite honestly, are just a strategy to try to connect. And when a child doesn't feel connected, that's when their behavior problems start to go, whack-a-mole. And then I do have a lot of folks that just say, we've never camped before in our lives, and this was more fun. Wasn't as bad as we thought, or fathers and sons that go hiking for the first time. They've never been hiking before. People that put together 500 and 1,000 piece puzzles that have said, if it weren't for the blackout, there's no way we would have ever done this. So every family's different, really. That I have found that when they're in the middle of a blackout, they become willing to cook together, eat more healthy foods, and just find ways to connect in ways that they wanted to, but they just couldn't find the time. And so a lot of the families that I work with, they will do a blackout once a year, just to kind of reset once a year. And that's what I do with my own kids. Every August, we black out, which is like the end of the summer, right before school starts, and is a good time to kind of regroup and set some goals as a family as far as how we want to go forward with the school year. So that's what we choose to do with our own children. But just in general, I think, it's kind of like jumping off a train that's going down the track, and just like jumping off the train for a little while. Like, can we jump off this train and like rest a minute? Kind of feels that way for a lot of people.
I imagine the first blackout is probably the most challenging in that regard of just, jumping in and doing it and seeing what happens and realizing that no, you're actually not going to die from from boredom, and what can fill that space instead. I heard somewhere a long time ago, that TV actually stands for time vacuum. And and doesn't that feel true, also for many of the other screens, our handheld devices and, all sorts of devices that we, really, fact of the matter, rely on for a lot of what we do. And it sounds like here is really this chance and this opportunity to rebuild or even create for the first time some of these really healthy lifestyle choices, and maybe creating some new things to do with the family, like we're going to cook together, or we're going to take these family trips, or we go hiking, or we go camping. That might be in place of just all of us sitting at home and playing video games, or stuck on our screens. It feels inspiring to think that there is another way that we can live our lives. Less dependent.
Yeah. In the beginning, it feels like a punishment, quite honestly. But by the end of it, typically everybody's has a little bit of a paradigm shift in realizing that the screen time really wasn't meeting their true need, their true underlying need. And it was the connection piece that they were really trying to get that connection need met through a screen. But the reality is we really can't get our true connection needs met with screens. There has to be real life people involved and eye contact and,
some of those basic needs that we all have as human beings, right? Connection and communication is really these key foundational pieces for our wellness.
Yeah.
So, Stacy, in our remaining few minutes, is there anything else that you're just wanting to add or to speak to in either your own personal practice or the 30-day blackout program?
Yeah, so Music City Family Therapy is growing, and you're welcome to go to musiccityfamilytherapy.com to see just kind of what we're up to here in the Nashville area. I also have screen-free women's retreats at my farmhouse in Columbia, Tennessee, once a month. It is a silent creative retreat for women. It's once a month on a Saturday, and it's just really a beautiful day to be at my farm, which is a 10-acre little hobby farm in Tennessee, where we've got chickens and a duck, one duck. Her name is Ethel. And we have different creative stations here with all kinds of art mediums. And it's about a 7-hour period of time where we do a check-in as a group, and then we move into silence. We even eat together a very healthy, nourishing meal from a gluten-free place here in town called the Dotted Line, is who caters it. And then we will go into silence for about 6-7 hours, and then we'll do a checkout where we just express our experience being in silence for that long, which quite honestly, the first time I did it, I was like, I don't know if I can be quiet that long. I don't know if that's even possible, but I did it. And then so at the end of that time, we process our experience and have a little fun little going away ceremony together. And then many of the women are staying in touch. It's a great way to build community with other women that are really wanting to simplify and be more in touch with nature and take better care of themselves and have a break from crazy town, for many of us that live very busy lives as women. So you are all welcome to my farm. You can if you go to stacyjagger.com and go down to farmhouse retreats, you can get that information there. And I will just say one more thing, Shannon. I know your audience is a lot of autoimmune issues. And in working with parents that are dealing with that kind of thing during the blackout, what I have found is by not being distracted by screens, they have to sit and really feel the grief of living with a chronic illness and really making a plan for what they need to do for their own self-care around what self-care looks like for them in regards to health issues that they're dealing with. And so, focusing on better nutrition and exercise and pure water and being out in the sunshine and reducing alcohol intake, fresh air, better rest, and just trusting that, that it's all going to be all right. And so certainly the health benefits of reducing screen time dramatically for a little while is sort of a holistic approach, regardless of what it is that you're trying to address.
Yeah, and I love this focus on the self-care. When we can remove ourselves from unnecessary distractions, we can allow ourselves to drop into that place of really seeing, what is it that I need? How can I support myself so I can support others, loved ones, children, family members, to be, the best that I can be, to help my family.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Stacy, for joining us and
for having me.
Yeah, bringing us along on this conversation and just letting us know what all of the really interesting and cool things that you're up to and in supporting family health and wellness. And I do want to mention that all of the websites and resources that we spoke to today during our conversation, I'll have all of that linked below in the description. So that is there for anyone who's looking to learn more or to buy Stacy's book, check out her website, her monthly wellness retreat, which I'm really thinking is something that I have to bring into my schedule here. That just sounds absolutely amazing. So yeah, thank you so much, Stacy. It's been really a wonderful conversation.